Again, same authors, Carrie Fransman and Jonathan Blackett. For those curious, after I get done editing the audio to put into multiple videos, they are all going up to YouTube, so hopefully. There was once upon a time a princess who wanted to marry a prince, but he must be a true prince. So she traveled through the whole world to find one. There was always something against each. There were plenty of princes, but she could not find out if they were true princes. In every case there was some little defect, which showed the genuine article was not yet found. So she came home again in very low spirits, for she had wanted to very much to have a true prince. One night there was a dreadful storm. It thundered and lightened, and the rain streamed down in torrents. It was quite fearful. There was a knocking heard at the palace gate, and the old queen went to open it. There stood a prince outside the gate. But oh, and what a sad sight he was from the rain and the storm! The water was running down from his hair and his trousers into points of his shoes, and out at the heels again. And yet he said he was a true prince. Well, we should soon find that, thought the old king, but he said nothing and went into the sleeping room, took off all the bedclothes and laid a pea on the bottom of the bed. Then he put 20 mattresses on top of the pea, and 20 eider-down quilts on top of the mattress, and this was the bed in which the prince was to sleep. The morning he was asked how he slept. "Oh, very badly," said the prince. "I scarcely closed my eyes all night. I am sure I don't know what was in the bed. I laid on something so hard that my whole body is black and blue. It is dreadful." Now they perceived that he was a true prince because he had felt the peas through the 20 mattresses and 20 eider-down quilts. No one but a true prince could be so sensitive. So the princess married him, for now she knew that at least she had got hold of a true prince, and the pea was put into the Royal Museum, where it's still to be seen if no one has stolen it. Now this is a true story. Oh my goodness, that was super short. That was like 2 pages. Alright, so I guess we're gonna do the third story now, because eventually we'll find a decently long one, right? I want to at least do an hour of stories, so this one's called Jacqueline. Well, one of us Jacqueline is Jacqueline, and then beanstock. Hi, Jacqueline. It's a really weird gender flip to the name. Yeah. Once upon a time, there was a poor widower who lived in a little cottage with his only daughter, Jacqueline. Jacqueline was a giddy, thoughtless girl, but very kind-hearted and affectionate. There had been a hard winter, and after the poor man had suffered from fever and ague, Jacqueline did not work as yet, and by degrees they grew dreadfully poor. The widower saw that there was no means of keeping Jacqueline and himself from starvation, but by selling his cow. So one morning he said to his daughter, "I am too weak to go myself, Jacqueline, so you must take the cow to market for me and sell him." Jacqueline liked going to the market to sell the cow very much, but as she was on the way she met a butcher who had some beautiful beans in her hand. Jacqueline stopped to look at them, but the butcher told the girl that they were of a great value, and persuaded the silly girl to sell the cow for these 3 beans. When she brought them home to her father instead of the money he expected for his nice cow, he was very vexed. shed many tears, scolding Jacqueline for her folly. She was very sorry, and father and daughter went to bed very sadly that night. The last hope seemed gone. At daybreak, Jacqueline rose and went out into the garden. At last, she thought, I will sow the wonderful bees. Father said that they are just common scarlet runners, and nothing else, but I will sow them. So she took a piece of stick and made some holes in the ground to put the beans. That day they had very little dinner, and went sadly to bed, knowing that for the next day there would be none. And Jacqueline, unable to sleep from grief and vexation, got up at the day dawn and went into the garden. What was her amazement to find that the beans had grown up in the night and climbed up and up and up until they covered the high cliff that sheltered the cottage and disappeared above it. The stalks had twined and twisted themselves together until they formed quite a ladder. It would be easy to climb, thought Jacqueline. And having thought of the experiment, she at once resolved to carry it out. Jacqueline was a good climber. However, after a late mistake about the cow, she thought she had better consult her father first. So Jacqueline called her father, and they both gazed in silent wonder at the beanstalk, which was not only of great height, but was also thick enough to bear Jacqueline's weight. I wonder where it ends, said Jacqueline to her father. I think I will climb up and see. Her father wished her not to venture up this strange ladder, but Jacqueline coaxed him into giving his consent for the attempt, for she was certain there must be something wonderful in the beanstalk. So at last he yielded to her wishes. Jacqueline instantly began to climb, and went up and up and up on the ladder-like beam to everything she had left behind her. The cottage, the village, and even the tall church tower looked quite like her, and she still could not see the top of the beanstalk. Jacqueline felt a little tired, and thought for a moment that she would go back down again, but she was a very persevering girl, and she knew that the way to succeed in anything is to not give up. So after resting for a moment, she went on. After climbing higher and higher till she grew afraid to look down for fear she would be giddy, Jacqueline at least reached the top of the beanstalk and found herself in a beautiful country, finely wooded, with beautiful meadows covered with sheep. A crystal stream ran through the pastures not far from the palace, where she had gotten off the beanstalk, and stood a fine, strong castle. Jacqueline wondered very much that she had never heard of or seen this castle before. But as she reflected on the subject, she saw that it was as much separated from the village by the perpendicular rock on which it stood as if it was on another land. Hi, Ethereal. While Jacqueline was standing looking at the castle, a very strange-looking man came out of the wood and advanced towards her. He wore a pointed cap of quilted red satin, turned up with a ermine. His hair streamed loose over his shoulders. He walked with a staff. Jacqueline took off her cap and made him bow. If you please, sir, she said, is this your house? I'm so sorry, Ethereal,
No,
said the gentleman.
listen and I will tell you the story of the castle. Once upon a time there was a noble dame who lived in the castle which is on the borders of fairyland. She had a fair and beloved husband and several lovely children. As her neighbors, the little people, were very friendly towards her, they bestowed on her many excellent and precious gifts. Rumor whispered of these treasures, and a monstrous giantess, who lived at no great distance, and who was a very wicked being, resolved to obtain possession of them. So she bribed a false servant to let her inside the castle, when the dame was in bed and asleep, and she killed her as she lay. Then she went to the part of the castle which was the nursery, and also killed all the poor little ones she found there. Happily for him, the gentleman was not found dead. Not to be found. He had gone with his infant daughter, who was only 2 or 3 months old, to visit his old nurse, who lived in the valley, and he had been detained all night there by a storm. The next morning, as soon as it was light, one of the servants at the castle who had managed to escape came to tell the poor gentleman of the sad fate of his wife and his pretty babes. He could scarcely believe her at first, and was eager at once to go back and share the fate of his dear ones. But the old nurse, with many tears, besought him to remember that he had still a child, and it was his duty to preserve life for the sake of the poor innocent. The gentleman yielded to the reasoning, and consented to remain at his nurse's house at the best place of concealment. For the servant told him that the giantess had vowed, if she could find him, she would kill both of him and his baby. Years rolled on. The old nurse died, leaving the cottage and the few articles of furniture it contained to this poor gentleman, who dwelt in it, working as a peasant for his daily bread. His spinning wheel and the milk of a cow, which he had purchased with the little money he had with him, sufficed for the scanty subsistence of himself and his little daughter. There was a little garden attached to the cottage, in which they cultivated peas, beans, and cabbages, and the gentleman was not ashamed to go out at harvest time, and glean in the fields to supply his little daughter's wants. Jacqueline, that poor gentleman is your father. This castle was once your mother's, and must again be yours.
Jacqueline uttered a cry of surprise. My father, oh sir, what ought I do? My poor mother, my dear father.
Your duty requires you to win it back for your father, but the task is a very difficult one, and full of peril. Jacqueline, have you courage to undertake it?
I feel nothing when I'm doing right, said Jacqueline.
Then, said the gentleman in the red cap, you are one of those who slay giants. You must go into the castle, and if possible possess yourself of a rooster that lays golden eggs, and a harp that talks. Remember, all the giantess possesses is really yours.
As he ceased speaking, the gentleman in the red hat suddenly disappeared, and of course Jacqueline knew he was a fairy. A red cap at that. Shh. Jacqueline determined at once to attempt the adventure, so she advanced, and blew the horn which hung at the castle portal. The door was opened in a minute or two by a frightful giant, with one great eye in the middle of his forehead. That's a cyclops. Sigh. I gotta point these things out.
Ho ho!
He laughed terribly.
You didn't expect to see me here, that is clear. No, I shan't let you go again. I'm weary of my life, and I'm so overworked I don't see why I should not have a maid as well as other gentlemen. And you shall be my girl. You shall clean the knives, and black the boots, and make the fires, and help me generally with the giantesses out. When she is home, I must hide you, for she has eaten up all my maids hitherto, and you be a dainty morsel, my little lass.
While he spoke, he dragged Jacqueline right into the castle. The poor girl was very much frightened, as I'm sure you and I would have been in her place. But she remembered that fear disgraces a woman, so she struggled to be brave and make the best of things. It's all right to be afraid, people. I am quite ready to help you, and do all I can to serve you, sir, she said. Only I beg you would be good enough to hide me from your wife, for I should not like to be eaten at all,
That's good, girl,
said the giant, nodding his head.
It's as lucky for you that you did not scream out when you saw me, as the other girls who have been here did. For if you had done so, my wife would have awakened, and have eaten you, as she did them, for breakfast. Come here, child. Go into my wardrobe. She never ventures to open that. You'll be safe there.
And he opened up a huge wardrobe which stood in a great hall and shut her into it. but the keyhole was so large that it immediately admitted plenty of air, and she could see everything that took place through it. By and by she heard a heavy tramp on the stairs, like the lumbering along of a great cannon, and then a voice like thunder cried out, "Fee, fi, fo, fum! I smell the breath of the Englishwoman. Let her be alive or let her be dead, I'll grind her bones to make my bread." "Husband," cried the giantess, "there's a woman in the castle. Let me have her for breakfast."
"You've grown old and stupid," cried the gentleman in his loud tones. "It is only fresh steak off an elephant that I have cooked for you, which you smell. Now sit down and make a good breakfast."
And he placed a huge dish before her of savory steaming meat, which greatly pleased her, and made her forget the idea of an Englishwoman being in the castle. When she had breakfast, she went out for a walk, and then the giant opened the door and made Jacqueline come out to help him. She helped him all day. He fed her well, and then the evening came, put her back in the wardrobe. The giantess came in to supper. Jacqueline watched her through the keyhole, and was amazed to see her pick a wolf's bone and put half a fowl at a time in her capacious mouth. When the supper was ended, she bade her husband bring her her rooster that laid the golden eggs. It lays as well as it did when it belonged to the paltry dame," she said. "Indeed, I think the eggs have grown heavier than ever." The giant went away, and soon returned with a little brown rooster, which he placed on the table for his wife.
"And now, my dear,"
he said,
"I am going for a walk, if you don't want me any longer."
"Go," said the giantess. "I shall be glad to have a nap by and by." Then she took up the brown rooster and said to him, "Lay," and he instantly laid a golden egg. "Lay," said the giantess again, and he laid another. "Lay," she repeated a third time, and again a golden egg lay on the table. Now Jacqueline was sure this rooster was what was that of the fairy had spoken, of which the fairy had spoken. By and by the giantess put the rooster down on the floor, and soon after went fast asleep, snoring so loud it sounded like thunder. Directly Jacqueline perceived that the giantess was fast asleep. She pushed open the door of the wardrobe and crept out very softly. She stole across the room, and picking up the rooster, made haste to quit the apartment. She knew the way to the kitchen, the door of which she found was left ajar. She opened it, shut and locked it after her, and flew back to the beanstalk, which she descended as fast as her feet would move. When her father saw her enter the house, he wept for joy, for he had feared the fairies had carried her away, or that the giantess had found her. But Jacqueline put down the brown rooster before him, and told him how she had been in the giantess' castle, and all of her adventures. He was very glad to see the rooster, which would make them rich once more. Jacqueline made another journey up the beanstalk to the giantess' castle one day, while her father had gone to market, but first she dyed her hair and disguised herself. The old man did not know her again, and dragged her in as he had done before, to help him do his work. But he heard his wife coming, and he hid her in the wardrobe, not thinking that it was the same girl who had stolen the rooster. He bade her stay quiet still there, or the giantess would eat her. Then the giantess came and sang, "Fee, fi, fo, fum! I smell the breath of an Englishwoman. Let her be alive or let her be dead, I'll grind her in bones to make my bread."
"Nonsense," said the gentleman. "It is only roasted bullock that I thought you would be a titbit for your supper. Sit down and I'll bring it up at once."
The giantess sat down, and soon her husband brought up a roasted bullock on a large dish, and they began their supper. Jacqueline was amazed to see them pick the bones of the bullock as if they had been a lark. As soon as they had finished the meal, the giant rose and said,
"Now, my dear, with your leave, I am going to go up to my room to finish the story I am reading. If you want me, call for me."
"First," answered the giantess, "bring me my money bags, that I may count the golden pieces before I sleep." The giant obeyed. He went and soon returned with two large bags over his shoulder, which he put down by his wife.
"There," he said, "that is all that is left of the dame's money. When you have spent it, you must go and take another baron's castle."
"That she ain't, if I can help it," thought Jacqueline. The giantess, with her husband, was gone, took out heaps and heaps of golden pieces and counted them, and put them in piles till she was tired of the amusement. Then she swept them all back into the bag, leaned back into a chair, fell asleep until snoring so loud that no other sound was audible. Jacqueline stole softly out of the wardrobe, and taking up the bags of money, which were her very own because the giantess had stolen them from her mother, she ran off, and with great difficulty descending the beanstalk, laid the bags of gold on her father's table. He had just returned from town, and was crying at not finding Jacqueline. "Dear father, I have brought you the gold that my mother lost."
"Oh, Jacqueline, you are a very good girl, but I wish you would not risk your precious life in the giantess castle. Tell me how you came to go there again."
And Jacqueline told him all about it. Jacqueline's father was very glad to get the money, but he did not like her to run any risk for him. But after a time, Jacqueline made up her mind to go again to the giant's castle. So she climbed up the beanstalk once more, blew the horn at the giant's gate. Giant soon opened the door, and he was very stupid and did not know her again. But he stopped a minute before he took her in. He feared another robbery. But Jacqueline's fresh face looked so innocent that he could not resist her, and so bade her to come in, and again hid her away in the wardrobe. By and by the giantess came home, and as soon as she had crossed the threshold, she roared out, "Fee, fi, fo, fum! I smell the breath of the Englishwoman. Let her be alive or let her be dead, I'll grind her bones to make my bread."
"Oh, you stupid old giantess," said her husband. "You only smell a nice sheep, which I have grilled for your dinner."
And the giantess sat down. Her husband brought up a whole sheep for dinner. When she had eaten it all up, she said, "Now bring me my harp, and I will have a little music while you take your walk." The giant obeyed, and returned with a beautiful harp. The framework was all sparkling with diamonds and rubies, and the strings were all golden. "This is one of the nicest things I took from the dame," said the giantess. "I am very fond of music. My harp is a faithful servant." So she drew the harp towards her, and said, "Play." And the harp played a very soft, sad air. "Play something merrier," said the giantess. And the harp played a merry tune. "Now play me a lullaby," roared the giantess, and the harp played a sweet lullaby to the sound of which its mistress fell asleep. Then, again, Jacqueline stole swiftly out of the wardrobe, and went into the huge kitchen to see if the giant had gone out. She found no one there, so she went to the door and opened it slightly, softly, for she thought she could not do so with the harp in hand. Then she entered the giant's room and seized the harp, and ran away with it. But as she jumped over the threshold, the harp called out, "Mistress! Mistress!" And the giantess woke up. With a tremendous roar, she sprang from her seat, and in 2 strides had reached the door. But Jacqueline was very nimble. She fled like lightning with the harp, taking it as she went, for she saw it was a fairy, and telling it she was the daughter of the old mistress, the dame. Still, the giantess came on so fast that she was quite close to the poor Jacqueline, and had stretched out her great hand to catch her, but luckily, just as at that moment, she stepped upon a loose stone and stumbled and fell flat on the ground, where she lay at her full length. This accident gave Jacqueline time to get to the beanstalk, and hastened down it, but just as she reached their own garden, she beheld the giantess descending after her. "Father, father!" cried Jacqueline. "Make haste and give me the axe!" Her father ran to her with a hatchet in his hand, and Jacqueline, with one tremendous blow, cut through all the beanstalks except one. "Now, father, stand out of my way," said she. Jacqueline's father shrank back, and it was well he did so, for just as the giantess took hold of the last branch of the beanstalk, Jacqueline cut down the stem quite through and darted from the spot. Down came the giantess with a terrible crash as he fell on her head. She broke her neck and lay dead at the feet of the man she had so much injured. Before Jacqueline and her father recovered from their alarm and agitation, a beautiful gentleman stood before them.
"Jacqueline,"
Said he,
"you have acted like a brave dame's daughter, and deserve to have your inheritance restored to you. Dig a grave, and bury the giantess, and then go kill the giant."
"But," said Jacqueline, "I could not kill anyone unless I were fighting with her, and I could not draw my sword upon a man who, moreover, the giant was very kind to me." The fairy smiled on to Jacqueline.
"I am very much pleased with your generous feeling," he said. "Nevertheless, return to the castle, and act as you will find needful."
Jacqueline asked the fairy if he would show her the way to the castle, as the beanstalk was now down. He told her that he would drive her there in his chariot, which was drawn by two peacocks. Jacqueline thanked him and sat down in the chariot with him. The fairy drove for a long distance round till they reached a village which lay at the bottom of the hill. Here they found a number of miserable-looking women assembled. The fairy stopped the carriage and addressed them.
"My friends,"
Said he,
"the cruel giantess who oppressed you and ate up all your flock and herds are dead, and this young lady has the means of your being delivered from her, and is the daughter of your old kind mistress, the dame."
The women gave a loud cheer at these words, and pressed forward to say that they would serve Jacqueline as faithfully as they had served their mother. The fairy bade them follow him to the castle, and they marched thither in a body, and Jacqueline blew the horn and demanded admittance. The old giant saw them coming from the charred loophole. He was very much frightened, for he guessed that something had happened to his wife, and as he came downstairs very fast he caught his foot in his hem, and fell from the top to the bottom and broke his neck. When the people outside found that the door was not open to them, they took crowbars and forced the portal. Nobody was to be seen, but on leaving the hall they found the body of the giant at the foot of the stairs. Thus Jacqueline took possession of the castle. The fairy went and brought her father to her with the rooster and the harp. She had the giant buried, and endeavored as much as lay in the power to do right to those who the giantess had robbed. Before his departure for Fairyland, the fairy explained to Jacqueline that he had sent the butcher to meet her with beans, in order to try what sort of girl she was.
"If you had looked at the gigantic beanstalk, and only stupidly wondered about it," he said, "I should have let you where misfortune had placed you, only restoring his cow to your father. But you showed an inquiring mind and a great courage and enterprise. Therefore you deserve to rise, and when you mounted the beanstalk you climbed the ladder of fortune."
He then took his leave of Jacqueline and her father. Whew. And I think I'm going to leave it there. That's three more stories, and looks like we're almost halfway through the book now. So I guess I might need to find some new stories. I do have a collection of short stories that I might do next, but I'm not sure how good they'll be for children. But we'll find out. So, thank you for everybody coming to Mel's Story Time. I hope you had a great time. Again, these are going to be going up to my YouTube and saved on my Twitch, so If you need a nighttime story, there you go. Until then, everybody have a great